All right, so let's do some parallelism practice problems. Hi, I'm Umar from BeBrighter, and I'm happy to be with you today. As always, these practice problems are available at cracksat.net, and today we're going to be talking about sentence fragments and run-ons. If you want the video lesson for this topic, you can look in our YouTube channel. We have something for you. So let's get right into it. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family trade, comma. They work mainly in fishing, oil, and education. All right, so what's wrong here? Well, the first thing you want to understand is that there's a couple things going on here. The first thing you have an independent clause right here. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family tree. That's a sentence on its own. Then you have, they work mainly in fishing, oil, and education. Now that's another independent clause. It stands on its own. Now, when you have two independent clauses, you can only connect them with three punctuation marks: a period, a semicolon, which looks something like that, or a colon. Because you don't have a period, a semicolon, or a colon here, you actually have a comma. This is going to be wrong. So A, no change, is going to be incorrect. I'm going to cross this out one more time. Let's look at B. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family trade, semicolon, mainly in fishing, oil, and education. Now, to avoid getting confused, I'm going to take this little blurb right here, and I'm going to sub it in right here. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family trade, semicolon. Now look at this. This is what comes after the semicolon, mainly in fishing, oil, and education. So what's the problem here? Well, a semicolon can only connect an independent clause and another independent clause. This is the only time a semicolon will work. If a semicolon connects an independent clause and a dependent clause, it's not grammatically correct. You would need a comma or something of that nature to connect an independent and a dependent clause. So because mainly in fishing, oil, and education doesn't have a subject, who is mainly in fishing, oil, and education? You don't describe that in that clause. It's a dependent clause, and the semicolon won't work. So B is going to be wrong as well. Let's look at C. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family trade, comma, oh, no comma, working mainly in fishing, oil, and education. Now try reading that one more time and see if it makes sense. Read it out loud. The people in Cal frequently follow the family trade, working mainly in fishing, oil, and education. Doesn't that seem a little bit run-on like? It seems a little bit as if there needs to be something there. There needs to be a natural pause. Remember, the rule of thumb for these is going to be sounded out first. Sound out the phrase you're trying to say and make sure it makes sense. The people of Cal frequently follow the family trade, working mainly in fishing, oil, and education. As a whole, it seems too long. There needs to be some sort of natural break, and that break is going to be a comma, maybe a comma with a conjunction, but definitely not no comma. So because there's no comma here, C is going to be wrong. All right, let's look at D. The people of Cal frequently follow their family trade, comma, working mainly in fishing, oil, and education. Now, why is this the correct answer? A couple of reasons. First of all, this is an independent clause right here, as we mentioned. There's going to be a comma here. This is going to turn into working, so making this a dependent clause. When you have an independent and a dependent clause, you are able to connect that with a comma, and because of that, this is grammatically correct. In addition, sounding it out, the rule of thumb will make it sense. The people of Caliph frequently follow their family trade, natural pause, working mainly in fishing, oil, and education. So D is going to be our right answer here. All right, let's move on to another. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team, comma, it is from Trenton, New Jersey. Same thing going on here. Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team. That is an independent clause. We have an independent clause here. You have a comma and you have an independent clause. What are the three punctuation marks that can connect two independent clauses? Period, semicolon, and colon. None of those are here. A comma's here. This is wrong. A is wrong. No change. What are we going to need here if there's an independent clause and an independent clause? You're either going to need to turn this into a dependent clause, or you're going to need to use a comma in the conjunction. Remember the fanboys conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so? Because of that, let's look at the following answers and see if they follow that pattern. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team, comma, they are from Trenton, New Jersey. So there's a couple things wrong here, and I'm going to highlight them out. First thing wrong is think about the Trenton Thunder. Is it a singular noun or a plural noun? The Trenton Thunder is one team. The Trenton Thunder. It's a minor league baseball team. Because of that, this is going to be a singular noun. Because of that, we need a singular verb. Are is a plural verb. Because of that, this is going to be wrong. In addition, putting a comma here actually creates an independent clause splice. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team is an independent clause. You put a comma, then you have another independent clause. They are from Trenton, New Jersey. That phrase can stand on its own. You can't put a comma between two independent clauses. Because of that, letter B is going to be incorrect. All right, let's look at letter C. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team from Trenton, New Jersey. Now, this makes a lot of sense. Let's delete this and let's substitute this phrase right here to make sure we know what we're talking about. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team from Trenton, New Jersey. First of all, it's concise. It makes sense when we sound it out loud. There's no conjunction at all. There's no comma, there's no punctuation. However, that sentence is an independent clause by itself. So you don't need any punctuation. And because of those reasons, C seems like a very plausible answer. Let's move on to D. The Trenton Thunder is a minor league baseball team, semicolon. They are from Trenton, New Jersey. We discussed this before. They refers to multiple people. It's a plural noun. Trenton Thunder is a singular noun. It is one team. Look at this is over here. That's a big hint. So these don't add up. This needs to be a singular noun as well. Because these don't add up, D is wrong. The correct answer is going to be C. Let me make that clear right here. All right, let's move on to another one. Yeah, and before we start on this one, I want to mention that there's a typo in this question. There should be a C. So it should be, I once met a Harvard math professor. Now, this is a very tough problem. I'm going to let you guys take a minute and try to solve it for yourself. Pause the video and try to figure it out. All right, assuming you've paused the video, let's read it over. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field, semicolon, and at the forefront of economic analysis. Right off the bat, we know something's wrong. Semicolon only connects two independent clauses. There's an independent here, there's a dependent. How do I know it's a dependent? Well, there's an and right here. When the second you add that and, that sentence, that phrase can't stand alone by itself. And Bill walked down the street. Is that a complete sentence? No. So A is going to be wrong. The punctuation is completely off. All right, let's look at B. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field, comma, and was at the forefront of economic analysis. This is tricky, but we're going to talk about this later. For now, you should know that when there's two commas, it creates a non-essential clause over here. What does non-essential mean? Non-essential means that this little section between the two commas can be taken out and the sentence can still be grammatically and factually correct. So let's take it out and see if the sentence now is grammatically and factually correct. I once met a Harvard math professor and was at the forefront of economic analysis. So in this case, you're changing the entire meaning. You're saying I was at the forefront of economic analysis. You are not at the forefront of economic analysis. This Harvard math professor is. That's an important distinction to make. Take a second and understand what I'm saying here. Non-essential clause is in between two commas. Right here. Whatever's in between here, if you take it out, an English rule states that the sentence must make grammatical sense from here to here, and you can't change the meaning. So B is going to be incorrect. And now let's take a look at C. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field, comma, who was at the forefront of economic analysis. Now this makes a lot of sense, right? I once met a Harvard math professor, comma, considered preeminent in his field, comma, so you have a natural break right here. Then you have who. And then you have a question, a question word, which is also known as the 5W word, which can be added after a comma to signify a descriptive phrase. So who was is actually acting as a descriptive phrase here. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field, comma, who was at the forefront of economic analysis. Who in this case would be the Harvard math professor. So C makes sense. Finally, let's look at D. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field, comma, he was at the forefront of economic analysis. We already know A, B, and C are in. A, B, C is probably correct. D, we're looking at. He was at the forefront of economic analysis. Now, what's going on here? You're creating an independent clause by adding this he. Think about it. Read that sentence out loud. He was at the forefront of economic analysis. That's a sentence on its own. That's an independent clause. You already have an independent clause here. I once met a Harvard math professor considered preeminent in his field. That stands on its own as well. And now you're adding a comma. Unfortunately, comma cannot go in between two independent clauses. It creates a comma splice. Because of that, D is going to be wrong. Our correct answer is going to be C. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of BeBrighter. As always, if you have any questions, drop them down into the chat. And then one thing to reiterate is for these questions, they're not too hard, but you should know that if you're in doubt, when in doubt, just read the question out loud and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, something's probably wrong with it. It's probably wrong. If it does make sense when you sound it out loud, if there's nothing that's off about it, then you know you have the right answer. Thanks for coming to today's video, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.